We are the Radio Netherlands Media Network team with our weekly communications magazine presented by Jonathan Marks.
Hello there. Just over 80 years ago, in December 1904, the Dutch set up a radio station near the North Sea holiday resort with the almost impossible name, at least for a foreigner.
Ik blijf de zomer lekker hier in Scheveningen. Mijn eigen bed, mijn eigen bier in Scheveningen. Hier heb ik alles bij de hand. Mijn eigen stad, mijn eigen strand. Ik steek mijn kop dus in het zand van Scheveningen.
During the Second World War, that word became a sort of test. If somebody couldn't say it, they obviously weren't Dutch. Yes, Scheveningen. And since then, Scheveningen Radio has become one of the most well-known of its kind in the world. For the first part of today's programme, we've come to visit this maritime communications service, providing the vital link between ship and shore. Behind me is a 7-storey concrete building. You can just see some of the antennas on the roof if you look up. And here outside, just by the entrance, is the board, Scheveningen Radio. It all sounds very ordinary, except that we're not in Scheveningen at all, but much further up the coast in a town called Ijmuiden. It's about 40 kilometres away from Scheveningen and about 25 kilometres west of Amsterdam. Well, I'm told we'll have to take the lift upstairs to the 4th floor to solve that particular mystery. So, let's go inside.
Scheveningen Radio, goedemorgen. Ik heb de aanvraag voor de Currency Express.
Safe indoors, out of the rain, with conversations buzzing around us, and with a panoramic view over the town of Ijmuiden and the North Sea Canal, we met up with Jan van Hof, who's responsible for staff training. So, has somebody made a mistake with the name?
It's not a mistake, actually. Scheveningen Radio is situated in Ijmuiden. That is to say, the operational centre is at Ijmuiden. But our main transmitters of the medium wave are located at Scheveningen, and that's why the station is called Scheveningen Radio. It's called after the transmitting station of the medium wave.
So why don't you call it Ijmuiden Radio today?
No, that's not possible. Suppose we'd call it Ijmuiden Radio. There is always a possibility of taking a radio bearing of the station you are listening at. And suppose you hear the name Ijmuiden Radio and you are taking a bearing, but our medium wave transmitters are situated at Scheveningen. So you get the wrong bearing, and that's very bad, I think, for the shipping.
If you imagine that a coastal radio station is a small hut by the seaside with a dipole aerial strung between 2 trees, then the insides of Scheveningen Radio come as a bit of an eye-opener. In a year, they handle some 6 million words between ship and shore in various forms. The operations centre is divided into 2 very large rooms, one for Morse code and telex traffic, the other for radio telephony, simply speech communication. And it's in that room that we've come to now. 90 telephonists, most of them female, work in shifts round the clock, seated in front of rows of apparatus. I think telephonist is perhaps the wrong word. Communications specialist is more like it. The girls first have to make contact with the vessel at sea by tuning them in on the radio and set up a communications channel before they can start connecting callers to the public telephone network here in the Netherlands. Speech communication is strictly divided into 3 parts of the radio dial, in a similar way to broadcasting. Maritime VHF, in the region of 156 to 174 MHz, is used for short-distance traffic, anything up to 30 kilometres. Next in line comes medium wave, used to cover most of the North Sea and the Baltic in one go. Below the medium wave AM broadcast band, that's around 500 kHz, you'll find Morse maritime traffic. Just above, that's between about 1,600 and 3,000 kHz, you'll find most of the radio telephony traffic. And then comes shortwave, which, depending on the time of day and the frequency used, can cover the world. The maritime communications are slotted between the broadcast bands, so you can expect to find them around 8.5, 12, 16 and 22 MHz.
Ship to shore, do you read me anymore? This line is bad and fading. Ship to shore, answer my call. Send me a signal
Across the North Sea in Britain, maritime stations are scattered at strategic points along the coastline. In the Netherlands, however, the operation is centralised.
Yes, that's right. We have a sort of, you may call it a centralised system. We have transmitters and receivers scattered all over the Netherlands, but all the lines come together at Ijmuiden, where we are situated now, and are operated from here, all remotely controlled from Ijmuiden.
And you mentioned a problem there, because it must be difficult to put transmitters and receivers together, so you separate them, do you?
That's right. I told you already the medium wave transmitters are situated at Scheveningen. The shortwave transmitters are situated at Kootwijk, in the rural parts of the Netherlands. And the VHF, I must say, transceivers, transmitters and receivers as well, are scattered all over the Netherlands at about 20 places.
You mentioned the VHF transmitters can also receive on the same aerial, but what about medium wave and shortwave?
For receiving, of course, there's a receiving station at Ijmuiden itself, but we have very important receiving stations also remotely controlled. For instance, for medium wave RT, that's radio telephony, are situated at Appingedam in the north of Holland and Hoek of Holland in the southwestern part of the Netherlands.
And what about shortwave?
And shortwave has also a very important receiving station situated at Nederhorst den Berg, that's near Hilversum.
It's quite an experience to use one of the remote control receivers. The panel in front of you looks quite ordinary, but as you turn the tuning knob, digital information is sent down a data line to the receiver, which is actually some 50 kilometres away. If you can't hear a ship using the Hoek of Holland antennas on medium wave, you simply press a button and use an antenna in Appingedam, way up north instead. It's not a luxury, though, it's a necessity. A ship may be trying to summon a doctor. On the other hand, a caller at sea may be asking to use the radio surprise service. Anja Nachtegaal, one of the supervisors in telephony operations, explained to me what that's for.
You can send flowers or just a message with happy birthday, lots of love, something like that.
Okay, you're sitting there with headphones on. You've got to concentrate because there are other people around you doing the similar sort of work. Isn't it very tiring?
It can be, especially during summer when we are very, very busy. But during a shift you've got a lot of variation. It's not only shortwave, but VHF as well. You start, for example, with shortwave. After an hour and a half you get a coffee break, and then you go to telex or telex on radio. After that you go to VHF, say channel 16, that's the distress frequency. And then you have a lunch break, and so on, so on.
Why is it busy in the summer? Because I would have thought, that the high winds come in the winter.
Yeah, but during summer you've got a lot of yachts. In Holland you've got a lot of water too. So we've got many, many clients during summer.
So you're not only doing the high seas, but also the inland lakes in the Netherlands?
Yes, that's right.
Now, most of it, I can imagine, is routine conversation, but are there lighter sides as well?
Yes, there are. You hear a lot, of course, but you are not allowed to talk about them. But once, during a telephone conversation, I heard a subscriber ask after the welfare of the passengers, and the captain answered, well, I've got a lot of deaths and several are dying. And I was aghast, I didn't know what happened. But afterwards the captain told me not to worry because he was talking about livestock.
Scheveningen Radio, hallo, Scheveningen Radio. Geef mij je liefste telefoniste, oh ik mis haar zo. Ik ben op weg van Rotterdam naar Dover. Lieve schat, praat eens wat.